Hey VC, this is Harvey of Spin the Black Circle. Hope everyone is well, doing good things. This is the third in the series of What's the Fuss, in which I select a kind of less known band or artist, or maybe even a genre, if the motion takes me, and talk about what exactly is the fuss about that thing. So I've been thinking when I was selecting this one, I was going to choose a rock band, which I'll do in a later series. But I'm in a kind of distracted mood today. You must have those times where you say, well, you can't choose what to play. You don't know whether to go for a walk because it's a nice sunny day, or sit and watch the TV, or do some exercise. So I got to thinking, what music gets me out of that mood? What music is truly immersive that might just help me to just relax and think about doing nothing? And one band springs to mind, as you'd have seen from the tag, and that is Scotland and Glasgow's The Blue Nile. Definitely 3 of the 4 Blue Nile studio albums take me to that place. They distract me from the distraction and help me to relax, and they're very immersive LPs, especially I would say the first 2, which I'm going to show. So who were the Blue Nile? They were, as I say, a Glaswegian band formed of singer Paul Buchanan and 2 other band members, Robert Bell and Paul Moore. So Glasgow, a 3-piece, originally signed to the RSO label, and they released a debut single in 1981 named I Love This Life. Quite expensive on 7-inch, so I don't have it, but you can get I Love This Life, stream it on deluxe versions of their debut LPs or just on YouTube. It's a really good pop tune. And for something that's quite divorced from their later output, actually it's quite redolent of the Blue Nile sound, or certainly their early sound. But sad fact is, having released that single in 1981 on RSO Records, RSO promptly went bankrupt. So they obviously lost their deal. RSO was subsumed into Polygram Records, I believe. And so they were left without a deal, but they were undaunted and continued to write their own songs, build up a portfolio of songs, and eventually signed to the Linn label, Linn, which most in the VC community, certainly UK VC members, will know. Linn was an incredibly popular turntable audiophile, actually high-end or certainly mid-range turntable manufacturer and other hi-fi manufacturer, very popular in the UK in the 70s with decks like the Linn Sondeck. They also had a record label attached to Linn. Now the rumour, which is actually untrue, is that Linn signed the Blue Nile on condition that they would make an album that sounded great on their turntables, and Paul Buchanan has thrown cold water on that rumour. It's not true apparently. But what is true is that Linn gave them somewhere between £20,000 and £30,000 to record their debut LP, A Walk Across the Rooftops. Recorded in 5 months and eventually released after a number of years from their debut single, eventually released in 1984. And it consists of actually only 7 tracks, 3 on side 1, 4 on side 2. If you want a quick headline of what I think this sounds like, it's in the closest band I would say Talk Talk. It is influenced in part by Kraftwerk. Definitely has an indie new wave pop sound to it, but it's also, getting back to my original statement, truly an immersive LP. Songs like Tinseltown in the Rain and Stay and Easter Parade, and the definitely Kraftwerk influenced Automobile Noise, which closes the album. It's an excellent LP, and I use that word too much in my VC uploads, but it definitely belongs as a descriptor of this Blue Nile debut LP. It has these sweeping electronic soundscapes. It's very 80s, but not in a kind of dry or slick way. They use that 80s electronic and new wave sound to their advantage. If anything, it enhances the Blue Nile sound for me, and this is a remarkable debut LP. The first and title track, A Walk Across the Rooftops, is probably the most angular and most difficult to listen to. It has these kind of stop-start rhythms, which again remind me of Talk Talk around the time of Laughing Stock, kind of deliberately angular and difficult. But then it kind of, as the album progresses, it just relaxes into this rich, vibrant set of soundscapes. With Paul Buchanan's got a kind of soft but also quite an operatic voice, not high range, but operatic in the sense of the ability to translate words in a graceful way, and very lyrics that are, in this case, very descriptive, I suspect, of life in Glasgow. It's an LP that sounds like it's redolent and about a city, and of course that city was Glasgow. There, certainly the city that they met and grew up in, and I think it must be a picture of somewhere in Glasgow. Someone might tell me in the VC where that was. But yeah, I Walk Across the Rooftops, 1984, their debut LP, released to very little fanfare, not particularly successful. None of their albums are commercially successful, but immediately critically lauded, and to this day appears in those sorts of lists of, you know, alternative best ever albums ever. So highly recommended. The challenge with this and most Blue Nile LPs in terms of getting hold of them on vinyl is, for some reason, they are scarce and or expensive. So this is the 2019 Confetti Records UK pressing, which was limited to only 1,000 copies, and I managed to quickly realise it was coming out and get hold of a copy. It's probably the least expensive of the Blue Nile LPs, of the three I'm going to show, of the four anyway. You can get hold of this still as Confetti release, despite that 1,000 limited pressing, for something between £40 and £50, and original pressings will cost you a bit more, but still I think probably less than £60 for the Blue Nile debut. I have no idea whether this is all analog, this Confetti 2019 pressing, but it sounds amazing. I've got nothing to compare it to, so I'm not tempted to buy another copy of this because it sounds absolutely fantastic. And I would buy the Blue Nile LPs in chronology. Actually, I would start with the Walk Across the Rooftops and move on from there. There's a bit of glare coming from this, and I'll try and fix that for the next album I'm going to show you, which I think is this next LP is the Blue Nile at their peak, and that's saying something given the quality of their output. But before I go into that, they're famous perfectionists, the Blue Nile. So they went into the studio after Walk Across the Rooftops in 1985, thinking that they would record for Lynn a quick follow-up to Hearts, and both the songwriting and recording process said otherwise, and they did not release Hearts, their sophomore effort, until 1989. So Hearts came out in 1989, again on Lynn Records. This is an original pressing of Hearts. It differs in sound to Walk Across the Rooftops. It's still electronic based. It's still about soundscapes, probably even more so than the Walk Across the Rooftops. But this is more lush and rich sounding and less angular, even though it sounds like nothing else. Songs like Headlights on the Parade, Downtown Lights, Let's Go Out Tonight, and Saturday Night. In fact, that final track, Saturday Night, kind of sums up the album for me. This sounds, the Blue Nile's Hearts, like you're in a quiet harbour somewhere for a Saturday night with the lights out. That's the whole ambience of the album. It's relaxed, but also at the same time incredibly exciting, kind of withheld joy is how I would describe both the lyrics and the music of the Blue Nile's Hearts. So whilst I would start with Walk Across the Rooftops, I think this is the pinnacle of this band. I think this is one of the best pop albums ever made. Was it ever going to sell in huge numbers? No, because it's too it's not immediately catchy enough in terms of what Joe Public or Joanne Public expect from pop records to hit the big time. And the closest you get to that is probably the Downtown Lights. But they're not about big choruses or song structures. The Blue Nile are about soundscapes and sound and music for its own sake, rather than commercially hitting any heights. I don't know if that's what they're aiming for, but certainly that's what you get from the Blue Nile. And this is rightly, along with the first LP, lauded by many musicians and critics. Ricky Lee Jones, I've heard it talk about the Blue Nile. Rick Springfield too. Lots of artists quote the Blue Nile as being up there, and Hearts tends to appear on lists of pop albums to own from the 80s. So yeah, this is an original pressing, you're probably looking at about £60 in the UK for this Lynn original pressing. I didn't get the confetti pressing of this because I already had it, but I think I only paid something like £25 for this years and years ago, before it became de rigueur to quote the Blue Nile and cool to quote the Blue Nile. But an exceptional LP, differs from a Walk Across the Rooftops in that it's more lush, as I said, and it sounds great on any turntable really. But if you've got a mid-range turntable, for example, and you put the hats on in some soft lighting in the evening and put this on, it's a tremendous album. And then there was another delay in Blue Nile albums to their third LP, Pieces Last, some 8 years later, I believe. And again, I got hold of the Confetti 2019 reissue of this. This tends to be the most expensive, I think, and most difficult to get hold of Blue Nile album, including this Confetti album, which was limited to 1,000. It's probably my least favourite out of these first three. It's still a great album by anybody else's measure. This would be a tremendous album. The introduce, it's more acoustic based, it's less electronic, and they introduced for the first time acoustic guitars, which is quite a bracing thing to hear Paul Buchanan's voice being backed by acoustic guitars, and in one case, in the opening track Happiness, via a gospel choir of all things. But what this album is about lyrically, I suspect, is, as the title suggests, Pieces Last, is a kind of settling down, is kind of the middle-aged album of Blue Nile albums, if you like, where they have found some sort of, or certainly the attempt to find this kind of safe harbour lyrically. Hence songs like Body and Soul, and God Bless You Kid, and soon the closing track. So it's kind of if Hats was a exciting but calm Saturday night, Peace at Last is the relaxation of a Sunday morning. But again, it's an immersive LP, and if you're going to buy the first two, I would still, even though it's my least favourite of the first three, I would buy Peace at Last. It might cost you a bit more than the other two, maybe slightly more difficult to get hold of, but it's excellent. And then I have to say that my least favourite Blue Nile LP is their fourth and so far latest album. According to Wiki, they're still together, but who knows? It's been, I mean, 2004. I don't have it on vinyl, but the album, if you can see it high, came out in 2004. I bought it on CD at the time, I remember, but that was when I was still buying CDs, obviously, and not vinyl, and I don't have it anymore. But I find it difficult to love this album. I can still hear that it's the Blue Nile. I can still hear that they poured a lot into it in terms of wanting to record something that is worthwhile. But I find it difficult. I particularly found the single I Would Never quite difficult to enjoy because it's repetitive and sounds almost identical to U2's I Still Haven't Found What I'm Looking For. And I can't believe U2 haven't taken exception to how much I Would Never sounds like that U2 song. So it's been released on vinyl. Maybe I need to, I'll go for a walk soon now that I've stopped being distracted. Maybe I should put on High by the Blue Nile. And if I feel differently having spun that track, I'll come back and tell you that I was wrong. Sorry, that album. I'll come back and tell you that I was wrong. And in fact, High is the best Blue Nile album. But I seriously doubt it because I did own it on CD and give it a fair chance. But that's all you got from the Blue Nile as far as I'm aware. I don't think there's been any live albums. They must have a raft of unreleased stuff because of the gestation periods between their albums. I would love it if we got a fifth Blue Nile LP at some stage. I have no idea if that's feasible. In terms of online content too, the only thing I can find, and please comment if you know different, VC, what I can find in terms of live stuff on YouTube, for example, is a what looks like quite an old Glastonbury full set though from Glastonbury, about an hour long on YouTube, but it looks like it's filmed through this kind of really hazy camera where you can actually see the camera edge. Still sounds amazing, but that's the only thing I can find which is a full Blue Nile gig online on YouTube anyway. So what an excellent band, and we're so lucky to have had them, and I do think that there should be more fuss about the Blue Nile beyond the occasional critical reference or from geeks like us who, or geeks, some of whom are like me, who know who they are. I think I'll leave you with this thought: they deserve a proper reissue program. There's no need for people to have to pay upwards of £50 to £60 for Blue Nile LPs. If you, for example, Record Store Day is coming up. If you'd have printed, 5,000 to 8,000 copies of Blue Nile's hats for Record Store Day, they would have all sold. So it's quite slightly odd. There's not some sort of reissue program that makes these that doesn't make a virtue of obscurity, which is what's happening at the minute with these Blue Nile albums. Sends the price up and means that the kids who can't afford to do what some of us can do can't just go out and get a copy of these tremendous albums that belong with the public. Now, of course, you can stream their albums, but I'm a physical media guy, and I think others who like to listen the way I do deserve to hear these on vinyl rather than through a phone. So there you go, an excellent Glaswegian band, up there with the best of them, and they deserve some fuss. Hope that was useful. If you either have or haven't heard of the Blue Nile, I'll see you soon in these tumultuous times, and peace everybody. Bye.